So what do Photoshop and this layered image have in common? Absolutely nothing. Um, I put this here to kind of give you a little bit of a representation of what layers are. Layers are really they are the fundamental building blocks of what we're going to do inside of Photoshop here. So I want to make sure we dedicate some time to them. And going back to what I said in the last lesson, at the start of the last lesson, which is if you're using Lightroom, layers are really one of the main reasons you would jump over to Photoshop as a photographer. Don't forget, we're framing everything in this class as a photographer. All right. So layers are really one of the main reasons why you jump over to Photoshop, is to have layering and detailed selective capabilities that come along with layering. So what we have here is, if you think about these transparent sheets, this would be your background layer. And here would be a new layer on top and on top and on top and on top of layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, 4, 5, 6 down the line. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's create a new Photoshop document really quick here. All right. Here's our background. If I click the create new layer icon down here at the bottom, all right, that's layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, 4, 5. Keep clicking it and you can see the idea here. We have all these different layers. They're transparent. There's nothing on them right now. So you don't see any difference in the image, but the layers do exist there. Okay, just like we have over here. The layers exist here. And what you're seeing is whatever the top layer is. You're going to see how this comes to play in a second, but you're almost to imagine you're on top of this looking down at it. All right, and whatever's on top is what you'd see first, then what's under and under and under. All right, so let's jump into an image here. So we have every image comes with a background layer. I'm going to give you a little layers trick here, and that is you're going to go to the layers panel or palette. If you don't see it, go window, go down to layers. If you go to the layers panel or palette, click on the palette menu, go down here to panel options, and you've got thumbnail size, small, medium, large. I'd suggest click the large one. It just makes it so much easier to see these layers in the layers panel when those layers are larger. So the little thumbnail, I should say, is larger. So we have a background layer. A background layer comes along with every image. All right, whether you open up a JPEG, whether you create a brand new document, you go file new, a background layer comes along with everything. One of the challenges that we have is, let's say we go to our brush tool as an example. Okay, up in the brush tool, we could click here. If you see, there's a little preview. If you click on it, you've got all these different size options. The hardness is how soft the brush is. At 0% hardness, the brush would look something like that. At 100% hardness, the brush would look something like that because it's got a hard edge around it. Okay, so we'll go with a harder edge brush here. Again, the size, that's an 80 pixel brush. If I crank it up here, that's a 300 pixel brush. So that's what the size is. And you've got all these presets here too. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a brush. I'm going to go over here to my color picker and I'm going to click on that. This is called the foreground color swatch. This is the background color swatch. There's two of them on top of each other. Top one's foreground, bottom one's background. I'm going to click on the foreground, set it to a color. I'll keep it set to black for this example. We'll click OK. So when I brush, all right, I click and press with my mouse or my pen and tablet, whatever I have. I click and press and drag. See what happens? I draw the scribble on here. Okay. Now, because I have a layer, I'm on the background layer, I just drew a scribble on top of my image. Okay, cool. Now, what happens if I later decide I don't like this scribble? I don't think the scribble looks good. I don't know how you could think the scribble doesn't look good. I think it looks great. Just teasing. But just let's say later on at some point you decide, you know what, I don't want this scribble anymore. Well, what would you do? Well, your alternative would be Photoshop does have an erase tool. So I could go and click on the eraser tool. And then, again, maybe I'll choose a larger brush here. I could click on the eraser tool and you think, well, you can erase the scribble. So let's do just that. What happens? It looks like I'm painting with white, but I'm actually not. What it's doing is, if you recall, your documents are white by default. Okay, there's a background layer here. The background layer has to show you something, so it's showing you white. All right. Well, it's showing me what's behind all this, which is just a plain white blank image. All right, there's nothing on it. So because I'm erasing, it's not working. I'm actually erasing the whole image. So we can go under the edit menu here and we can go step backward. Okay, I'll continue to step backward here. back to where we have our scribble. All right, again, erase. See, that doesn't work. So let's step backward even further. And I'll step backward to here. This is before we did anything. Let's say we came down to the layers palette and I click the create new layer icon. Now I have a new layer in my layers panel. Now I'm going to go to my brush tool, just hit the letter B, or you can click on it over here. Same brush, same everything. Now I'm going to scribble. All right, same thing. It looks exactly the same. Nothing's changed there. But now take a look at what we have over here in our layers panel. We have a layer on top. You can even see the scribble on the thumbnail here. And then we have our original photo layer below, but it's protected. Nothing's happened to it because we did all of our changes on the top layer here. And that's really the key of layers. If you go back to our example here, background layer, we have this transparent sheet on top of it. All right. Depending on when you went to school, when I went to college and grade school, my instructors had an overhead projector. All right, and they used to put transparencies down on there. They might have had a chart on one image. And then for my class, they wanted to draw on the chart. But they don't want to draw on the chart forever because they may want to use that chart for the next class too. You don't want to permanently change it. So they put a piece of transparent paper, which is a layer on top of it. Same concept here. Background, transparent paper on the top. We come over here, background, transparent piece of paper on the top. I scribbled, painted all over it. Now I'll go to the eraser tool. Watch what happens. See that? So now I can erase it and I'm not doing anything to the original photo. The original photo is still perfectly intact on a layer right below here. The other thing to know is it matters what layer you click on. Okay, so I'll undo and I'll come back over here. If I click on the background layer and I try to erase, see what happens? It's not what we're looking for. You've got to select the layer by clicking on it. It means that layer is targeted. Now I can erase. And you can do all kinds of other things too, as we'll get into throughout this course. You'll find that there's so many more things we can do once we start breaking out all of our changes as separate layers, because now everything is individual from each other. So I could go to my move tool, and remember I have this top layer selected. I can move it around. All right. If you go over to your layers palette, you'll see there's a little eyeball icon. That little eyeball, it's a visibility icon. If I turn it off, now I don't even see that layer anymore. Turn it back on, now I see that layer. If I turn the bottom one off, now I don't see the background anymore. Turn it back on, now I do see the background. While we're here, let's very quickly just talk. See that little checkerboard here? That's Photoshop's way of showing you transparency. Okay, that checkerboard means transparent. That means there's nothing on it. Okay, so that's all it means. If I printed this, it would actually print white. Or if I printed it on black paper, I guess it would print black. It's Photoshop's way of telling you there's nothing here. So as soon as you print, whatever the color of the paper is whatever this would show up as, because there's nothing over this transparency. Okay. And the nice thing about layers, we call this non-destructive editing, because what I can do here is, let's say I don't want this at all. Let's say I don't want it anymore. I just click on the little trash can icon down here, delete layer 1. Yep. Now it's gone. My original photo, the one that I opened, perfectly intact. And whenever I want to do something to it, and you'll see as we go through this course, we're going to start to add layers to do it, because we want to keep our original photo intact and we want to have total control over all the adjustments that we add to the images that we're editing here.